Hello and welcome to Everyone's an Expert. Hopefully everything's running well. I just had to reset the setup again. But the oceans are on fire. The other refineries are blowing up, and it's time to talk some EVs. Let me know if the Wednesday night format is working for you. I'd be happy to know about that. Working on the second part of our road trip video and going through some of the footage from my interview with Destiny Reeves Wolf from North Dakota, who is one of the volunteers at the Dinosaur Museum and I think a board member. And we just got a really great tour from her. And so I'm actually going to do a separate kind of focus piece on the museum and the level 2 charger they have in their parking lot. And that'll probably come out next Wednesday. Well, now I'm doing this on Wednesdays. I'm not sure. It'll come out next week sometime. But in the next video, I'll do a shortened portion of that segment in the road trip video because it's very cool. And I got some of the big questions I have about fossils and like how they find them, where they find them, all that kind of stuff answered. And we also, like I said, talked about that charging station. So some cool stuff there. But it's going to be about a 15-minute long piece. And so a little long to stick in the middle of our road trip sequence. But I'll take snippets of that and kind of tease what'll be in the longer format in Sunday's video, which is the road trip picking up where we left off from the tire mishap and then the rock chip mishap. And picking up that next morning, we're all ready to start fresh. Excuse me. But we're all ready to start fresh. And the museum tour was a great kickoff to that day, and things got better throughout most of the rest of the trip until we had another flat tire. But I'll get ahead of myself if I start talking too much about that. Plus, I kind of went through some of the basics of the trip last week. So if you missed that, I kind of do a quick, well, relatively quick. That live stream lasted about 2 hours, but I go over the plan of the trip and then what we actually ended up having to do. But if you're interested in that kind of a rundown, check out last week's Everyone's an Expert number 12. So if any of you have watched the video, have any questions, you think I'm an idiot for spending that much on a whole new set of tires when just one blew, let me have it in the chat. It seemed like the right decision at the time. You know, after you do something like that, you kind of question like, well, there probably were better options. But, at the beginning of that trip, I really didn't want another thing to get in our way. And I thought, let's just handle it, be taken care of. It's expensive, but let's move on and enjoy the rest of our trip. And that's what we did for the most part. But we'll get to that. So that piece with Destiny on the Dinosaur Museum in Dickinson, maybe I will do that on Wednesday or Thursday maybe of next week. I'll release that. I'll definitely post it everywhere, so I'll litter your feeds with when that's posted. But and then I also spent some time with the Well Done Foundation, checking up on their progress, which again I mentioned last week, and I'll do a full feature on that as well, a separate piece from the stuff I'll put in the road trip video. Excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat tonight. I didn't take my allergy medicine, so that's kind of acting up. But I'll try to catch it without coughing into the microphone if I can help it. So those features will be separate, and I'll find another day when those can be released. But excuse me one more. Wow, that's a doozy. Of course, right as I'm getting started. But if there's anything you guys want to talk about, there's a lot of good Elon stuff being shared out on Twitter, and we can talk about that. Some of it I do want to talk about. But for the 4th of July, if you guys had any cool road trips, be sure and let me know. And actually, while we're doing this, I took a bunch of photos. You know, when you go on a road trip and you're going to all these beautiful places, you have the best intentions of, I'm going to get so much footage of all the superchargers, and I'm going to get so much footage of, you know, the family and the vacation and the spot, but I'm also going to take a bunch of photos and get these, you know, of course, fantastic, you know, magazine quality photos, because I'm going to have the time to do all of those things and watch a child and pay attention to everything else. Of course, none of that happens, but I did end up getting some shots which I thought were pretty good. I'm not sure if they're all going to make it into videos, so I thought I would throw them up here. And so we'll go to that now. And got to get in my right little square here. You got to sit just right or you fall out. So again, this is Glacier National Park, and my brother and my daughter there. And then this is the view from Lake McDonald as we're out in the kayaks and canoes. I did get some video footage of this. This is a panorama. I'm just scrolling across. But while I'm showing you these, I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the feelings I had as we got back. Was this epic trip was really cool and a great experience, but especially in cleaning out the car, I couldn't help but notice how much waste we created. And I had thought we'd been pretty good about it. You know, my daughter's has the diapers, which is a thing that really I need to find a more sustainable path on that also works for school. But, you know, we had eaten in a lot of the, or we had gotten food at a lot of, nice. We bought food at a lot of grocery stores. There were a lot of meals where we just made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the trunk, just standing there, you know, eating out of the back of the car, which was fine. It was kind of like camping or, you know, making a meal at a supercharger, whatever. And so I felt like we had been really kind of frugal and careful about not buying so much stuff. But at almost every stop and every night going into the hotels and things, I just noticed how much waste, you know, wrappers and bottles and just different things that, you know, will probably never be recycled. And so it got me thinking of like, I really want to do more. When I do trips like this, I don't necessarily want to take every last little thing that we'll need for the entire time. I don't think we would have had the space on this trip. But I want to be a little more cognizant of that before just jumping in the car and going. And trying to cut down, you know, we're cutting down on the you know, fuel usage, obviously, but there's another big, you know, footprint we're leaving with all the plastics and wrappers and things like that. So just a thought I had. So it was really kind of gung-ho for hopefully not going anywhere on the 4th of July and staying home and doing just, you know, simple, like my yard needs a ton of work, my house needs a ton of work, you know, maybe doing some of that. But it's also a holiday weekend. My daughter had, you know, 4 days off. My wife had 3 days off. So we ended up going to a couple state parks, which were nearby, which were really great. And as much as seeing all this beauty and wonder, and obviously we don't have elk in southern Minnesota that I'm aware of, and that's one of my favorite pictures. But being able to leave home with a couple snacks or something for the road, go to a place that's very cool and we've never seen before. We went to a park. I want to say it's Nurstrand or something like that. It's just south of Northfield, Minnesota. And it had a nice little waterfall. It was a little trail, nothing too epic or difficult. And it was just nice. It wasn't that far from, the highway. We were able to get to it relatively easily, but it's in a bunch of farm fields, and then suddenly there's woods and a stream and a little river, and you're kind of taken right out of that typical southern Minnesota landscape of just fields, with trees and things, but mostly corn, soybeans, and just in this little spot, you're transported into this other world. And there's so many great state parks and regional parks and places like that I want to do a better job of exploring those. And, also keeping my footprint down while still having some pretty good adventures. And also you don't have to worry about any charging because it's an easy, I think it was 40 minutes each way. So I'm not sure what the exact mileage was, but, no need to bother charging or anything. Still got home with plenty of charge. It was just really cool, a nice little family afternoon hike. There was some water there. There was some different kind of woodland playground equipment that my daughter really enjoyed. And, just kind of cool. And kind of in that theme, I think we're going through those photos for a second time, so I'll let this one finish one more time, and then I'll let the loop stop and then cut it off. But another video that was posted this week was Iowa Tesla guy did a pretty similar thing, and he filmed it. I felt really weird going to a park without filming and doing the dash cam video and all that stuff. So I'm glad to see that Iowa Tesla guy. I'm blanking on his name right now, but he did a trip from his house kind of down through Iowa and hit some of these little, not even state parks. I mean, some of them may have been, but little historical curiosities and things in different cities. And there were some in Amish country, and then had a destination charger at his hotel, and he kind of talks through how that went and things. But there are so many great places nearby our homes or within our states that, I am definitely guilty of overlooking that stuff because I just figure I got to go to mountains or ocean if I want to see something cool. And so many people, friends of mine, were also traveling around the state over the 4th of July weekend and posting great pictures of things that I thought, wait a minute, that's in Minnesota? That's really cool. I haven't seen that. So it's kind of renewed my... Oh, you're in there. Jim, thank you. Thanks, Jim. Sorry about that, but great video, and I'll put a link to it in the comments below so people can check it out. But yeah, it was really cool to see that trip, and I want to do more of that kind of thing, even if it's like this thing in Northfield. It wasn't anything to film necessarily, especially it was a 2-hour time we were there. No charging, nothing really interesting from an EV standpoint, but a great little trip just to take nearby your own home. And so I want to, it's kind of a goal I set for myself this weekend of do more of that stuff. And another thing that came up through this weekend is people were asking about some of the different chargers around town or around the area. And I'm going to switch back to the other because we were on third watch, and watching Ellie kayak is great, but you've seen them now. There's only so much you want to see of other people's vacation shots. But there are a lot of superchargers that will soon be opening in and around Minnesota. And so I think my next big road trip is going to be kind of a loop around the perimeter of Minnesota and, seeing how easy now with these new chargers it is to travel all around the state, and maybe find some places where it's still a little iffy, but, I like mapping that out for, other Minnesotans or people traveling through, just to know what's around, how easy it is to get to different areas. And as the supercharger network grows and they start rolling out faster, I feel like some of them are coming out ahead of even the schedule on Tesla's website if they go live. I know a few in Minnesota are in construction, and if they can go live sooner than planned, that would be incredible. I don't think we'd know what to do with ourselves. You could just go anywhere. Yeah, like Todd, like you said, it's great to find the holes in the wall. Oh, your wife went to college in Northfield, Jim. That's cool. Um, my my parents, I think it was before I was born. My parents lived in Northfield, and my mother was on the welcoming committee. So she worked like with the city, and when people, I don't think places do this anymore. Maybe they do, but when you moved to Northfield, you got a gift basket, and so my mom would put those together and bring those to new families or people who moved to town. So that's about all I know. I did an event with one of the crop companies nearby Northfield, so spent some time there, but didn't get a ton of intimate knowledge about the city or anything. But it seems nice that they've got a really nice park down by the river, and they've got charging stations, so that's pretty cool. I did, when I was touring colleges in 1994, yeah, that would have been 93 or 94, I did check out St. Olaf, but didn't end up going there. But more about my college in the future road trip videos, because we stopped in Sioux City, Iowa, where I went to college. And I don't know how much I'm going to talk about that, but we stayed a night there, and I had the debate of, do I go check out campus or do we just get home? And we did end up skipping it, but yeah, just very interesting. I haven't been back there in a long time, so very interesting also to see how the roads have evolved from Sioux City up to I-90. The route I used to take several times a year, for the 4 years I was there, and it's a lot easier now. Like, the roads are in much better condition than they were at the time. So I guess that's what 22 years will do to road constructions. Anyway, way off topic there. Yeah, so look for my suggestion is look for, obviously, Jim's video, but then look for the small town treasures and some of the things like I was talking about when I drove through Nebraska last week. I was talking about there was a Pony Express station, one of the original Pony Express buildings, And, you would never know that. It's not advertised on the highway. It's the kind of stuff you almost have to look up, like what is this town known for? And then you might find that. So, yeah, there's cool stuff all over. And some really cool, like, history things everywhere. So, yeah, I was talking about the Minnesota Loop trip I'm going to do, because I think Grand Forks is under construction. Watertown, South Dakota might be under construction. And then last week we talked about Bemidji and the one at Black Bear Casino. I can't think of the name of the town, but a lot more of the state is being covered. And if the border with Canada would open up, we could even go up to the Canada line. I can't remember what it's called, but the Trans-Canada route, and cover that across northern Minnesota as well. But we'll see. We'll see what that ends up being. Again, I don't want to get too out of control and be wasting too much on these big trips. And I also had a big realization that this new car is still under warranty, and I'm just cranking out miles on it. Whereas the old car did have a warranty, but it was an older car, had free supercharging, and I wasn't worried about anything. So I might start taking shorter trips just to push that inevitable end of the warranty out a little further. But we'll see. There's always adventures to be had, and I know every couple years we've gone to Cincinnati in the fall for my daughter's birthday. They have the Cincinnati Zoo, probably 4 or 5 years ago now, had a premature baby hippo named Fiona. And when my daughter was little, well, she's still little, but when she was very little, we were looking for like different animal videos, and that was right when she was born. And someone made like this 2.5-minute song about, Fiona, the baby hippo, is going to grow up big and strong, and had all this great animal footage. And so for Joan's birthday in early September, every couple of years we've been going to Cincinnati to go visit Fiona. And Joan could sit by that tank and just be mesmerized. Like, we wouldn't see the rest of the whole zoo if we didn't pry her away from that. So it's kind of cool. We're going to do it again this year, so probably will in September make a run down there. That's the next road trip I know of. I know of for sure, but I'm sure there'll be something that pops up before then. So yeah, there's more stuff coming up. It might just not be the 13-day mega adventure with 2 pop tires, that kind of thing. And, might tone it down a little bit from there. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, it's kind of random, but I've seen it pop up on a few friends' Facebook feeds, and and on Twitter, people retweeting this thread from I can't remember the exact situation, but basically their spouse works at NASA or works, as a partner with NASA, something like that, and they kind of go on this tirade, and most of it makes sense about, kind of this billionaire space race. People think it's a escape hatch for the wealthy. You can go live in space, and they basically talk about how it's so difficult to live on the International Space Station. You have this whole crew of people, down on Earth, just, troubleshooting and keeping you alive and giving you new tasks of things to repair because stuff's always breaking. And, there's all of that. And, part of the thing is like Bezos is going to go to orbit or go to space, and uh, I think it's very cool. He's taking that. I can't. Wally is that her name? Um, but she was one of the original Mercury astronauts. Never flew. Never made it to space. He's taking her up. I'm not a huge Bezos guy, but I thought that was pretty cool. Um, and then, um, Branson is, Branson, and he's going to try to get up into space before Bezos, just because. But I don't think they're like, the whole thing was like, oh, they think they can go live and escape to space. And I don't think either one of them really have any of plans of doing that. Um, Now you could say like they're kind of spinning their wheels, like doing these things, um, and not being super productive at this point with their space programs, and that's probably relatively true. But by the end of it, they're lumping Elon into it, and Elon's got his flaws. He's a human being. He's just a guy. He's got very specific. Um, his mind works in a very specific way, and that opens the door to all the things he's either achieved by himself or achieved by putting the right people and pushing them in the right way to achieve those things. And that could be a whole debate I don't really care to get into, because it's six of one and half the dozen of the other. But part of this thread is, why don't these billionaires, instead of going to space or worrying about Mars, do something to help the climate that's burning? And it's like, okay, well, what do you think Tesla's mission is? Like, it's clearly people who have never. Well, it's like the name of this. Everyone's an expert, and they clearly know a little bit, but don't have a full understanding of what Tesla's mission is, and really what SpaceX's mission is. It's not just to go to Mars for Mars' sake. Elon's done an interview where he talks about how, I think he's even said, I'd like to die on Mars, just not necessarily on impact. And I think within that same interview, he talks about how difficult it's going to be and how everybody's going to be working all the time to keep themselves alive and to build, something that can be grown and sustained. And he talks about, I can't remember if he talks about this or I've got dinosaurs on the brain and I'm mixing things up, but I think he's even said, like, if dinosaurs were multiplanetary, we'd still have dinosaurs, because they would be able to have gotten out of some would have survived, when the meteor or asteroid or whatever it was, hit the Earth. So, I just find that really interesting, and people have been reposting that thread who love the environment. Or I got a friend who's I think he lives in Boise, and he's mad as hell that it's so hot there right now, and I don't blame him. Like, that's got to be really awful. I think it was 107 the other day, and and has been for days. They've been having such terrible heat. And, so he's reposting this, like, why are they wasting their time? And, Elon kind of gets lumped into those, those discussions because he's a billionaire and has a space company. But a lot of it's also, they're using up taxpayer dollars, and, there again, I think it's easy to look at that and say, oh, NASA's using a SpaceX, SpaceX must be charging a ton. And SpaceX, I'm sure, is making money on it, but compared to what Russia was charging us and what they were going to charge us if SpaceX had not been ready for future flights of Americans to space. We're getting a great deal. I can't remember the numbers right now, but we're getting a great deal sending people up on SpaceX per seat than we do with the Soyuz. So I wish people who had, and obviously this person knows somebody who's working with NASA or works for NASA, so they have an air of authority as they're making these statements. So people take them as fact. But clearly, if you've been following SpaceX, if you've been following Tesla, you know some of their points don't apply to Elon. Again, not that he's beyond criticism, and that brings me to another thing, but I just, some of that stuff I don't even know how to respond to because, I want to say, look, this person doesn't understand this, or this, and point all that stuff out, but on the other hand, I agree with their overall point of that we've got to take care of the Earth and, we need to be doing more. So with some of those people who mostly agree with you, I have a hard time saying, oh, you're not 100% right, shut it down. But at the same time, I don't like those myths being extended out into the world. But Elon was brought on like tweet 12 of 20 on a thread. So it's also like, who other than me read that far in it? I don't know. But I'd be curious if anybody has any thoughts on how to approach that stuff and not come off as a holier than thou jerk about it. That's another thing about being in Sioux City again. Reminded me of a lot of college stories and how in my 20s I knew everything. And I wasn't necessarily the greatest guy because of it. And I sure thought I was. And I realized that part of that is still going on in my 40s. And I try to shut it down and catch it. But, that's part of the reason I'm doing this and calling it everyone's an expert. Because I think I have a lot of the answers. But I also know I don't know that much. And so just talking it out, getting feedback is helpful, I think, in kind of tamping that down in yourself. Like Elon does say, I know I'm wrong. The answer is how much and how much more right, or, how much less wrong can I be, tomorrow. Total paraphrase there. And so, like I said, this brings up another Elon thing, and then I'll stop talking about Elon. But he tweeted out a thing yesterday where it was the magic mirror from Harry Potter. I think maybe the first one, the first movie, and then what Harry saw in the mirror was stocks going up. And I think Dave Lee reposted, like, what do you think Elon means about this? Or means by tweeting this? And the reply was all of the experts who love Elon and all of the experts who hate Elon. More people who love him than don't. But it was just very interesting, like how many people think, oh, it's because he's a mastermind and he's about to drop, a major bomb, which is going to, throw the stock into the air and it'll be amazing. We won't even know it's coming, and he's teasing it this way. Other people were like, full self-driving is so good, the stock's going to rocket up. And then other people thought it had something to do with crypto and stuff like that. And sometimes I think, like I said, for the most part, like Elon's got very specific skills and knowledge and way of thinking, which makes him special. But he's also just a guy who tweets weird stuff and stuff he finds funny. And not all of it is earth-shattering, um, three-dimensional chess where, we'll look at it back at it in a month and go, wow, that, he totally told us and we didn't get it. It could be. He's done that kind of thing before, but for the most part, I think, sometimes he just tweets something and it's best to wait it out, see if it meant anything or if he was just feeling stupid. So maybe he's just a guy like the rest of us. Or gal, if there are any gals watching. However, my YouTube analytics would suggest there are no women watching. But if you are, make a comment or something so I know, because I would love to have a bigger female audience. That's one of my goals that I have yet to figure out how to accomplish. Ellie was going to be on here tonight talking a little bit about her experiences with the trip. That might happen next week. She ended up having to work late tonight, so she is up in her office doing her work things. Thrill, as Brian says, a lot. The road trip playlist is a thing I've been thinking about making. When I'm editing these videos, it kind of breaks my heart that I have to find stock music that's royalty-free. Some of it's okay, but it's a huge time suck to find music that doesn't suck or only sucks a little and you can live with it. I would love to be able to, and I don't know how I'd do this, but there are so many songs that I have as road trip staples, or songs that really kind of tie into the trip as we're just listening to either the radio or different streaming in the car or whatever. And I would love to share some of that because it really captures the tone much better and kind of the mood we were in at the different times. There's a thing my brother and I have been doing since we were in our 20s of he used to have a cassette tape, I'm sure he still has it, that is Men at Work's Land Down Under. And it's just that for the entire tape. And on the B-side. And on one of our trips to California, I think it was the one to California, we just played it the entire time. Or not the entire time, but for a big stretch between cities. And it would get so annoying, and then it would get hilarious, and then you wouldn't even really hear it for a while, and then it would start to bother you, and then it would get hilarious again, and so I had that on repeat, playing off my phone for part of the trip, and it's just goofy, fun stuff that comes up on a road trip based around music. And I would love to find a way to share these were the songs of the trip, and or maybe 3 songs for each state. And I don't know how. I think you can. I'm not on Spotify, but I think you can make playlists on Spotify and share them. Maybe that's something I could do. As just a little bonus of, here's the real stuff we were listening to. You had to listen to some weird techno thing I found or whatever. But that's always a struggle, is finding the right tone and music that's not too goofy, or, like, you look for something that's like, you search for like fun or, energetic. And like the energetic stuff is like all like deep house music with, like electronic. And you search for fun and it's these wacky ukulele riffs and things like that. It's like, oh man, no one wants to hear this stuff. So just know I am working on it. It's a thing I would love to have better, like more well curated music. I wish I could afford to have the real stuff in it, but considering this is all free, that's not going to happen. But maybe doing a Spotify playlist or something would be a good idea. Yeah, Jim, the music search, you can spend hours and find maybe one track or something. I do have a subscription service called, used to be called Audio-Blocks and Video-Blocks. It had like B-roll of stuff. Now it's called Storyblocks, and they've kind of all merged together, and you can find stock photos, stock audio, or not, stock, but royalty-free stuff, and royalty-free video clips. And it's a great resource, but for those kind of things, it's lower end on the price scale. And so, you kind of get what you pay for. There are some gems in there, and I've found a few different artists that make some things that I kind of like the sound of. But it can be a huge part of the editing process. I want to say Saturday night before the first part of the road trip video dropped, I probably spent at least 2 hours trying to find songs that would work. And I usually like find the song and then cut to it, so I'd have kind of the rough clips I wanted to use, but then I can't finish cutting until I get the music and time it all out. So, and then if you need several songs for a video, this is the way in the weeds on editing. Nobody cares about this, but Jim knows what I'm talking about. You can't just find one song. A lot of times you have to find 2 or 3 songs that all kind of work together or help tell the story. And so, when my daughter was swimming in the pool, I used part of a song that was, a little more, upbeat and kiddie, and it kind of worked, but like the longer that song went on, the more annoying and dumb it got and didn't really go anywhere. So I only used that little snippet for that kind of fun morning stuff, and it worked for that, but then, I needed other tracks to put around it. Yeah, it's a thing. I think everybody other than maybe the highest budget people or actual musicians, have a problem with. I do have a lot of musician friends, and I've thought about, asking if I could use some of them or like instrumental versions of some of their stuff. But again, it's got to fit the right tone. I've got a friend who does some nice, country style work, but that doesn't fit, if you're going for a hard, we're on a road trip kind of vibe. That doesn't necessarily always work. And then, kind of the other way too, where it's like some things are just a little too heavy for family fun. But anyway, that's... if anyone has any good suggestions, I'd love to hear how I could share, a playlist or something of actual tracks of like, these tracks are inspired by, or, are kind of a companion piece of the video. I don't know if anybody would listen to that, might be more trouble than it's worth, but it's just, a big part of road tripping to me is the music you listen to. And when you're traveling with a child, that's a lot of Disney and a lot of the Sesame Street channel, which some of those songs aren't bad, but after a while, it's a lot. Also, if anybody has any suggestions of, if a piece of music I use in a video is really awful, or like seems like the tone is way off, feel free to let me know politely, preferably, because I do want to always like do better and better production value. So if something seems really out of place, let me know. Or if you're like, man, this whole series should have been, all banjo music, or it should have been all, keytar, I'm all ears. So very open to suggestions. With that, let me see. There was we talked about a little bit about the scheduling and whether Wednesday nights work for people. It's a little goofy for me to remember, but I feel like breaking it out through the week, from releasing the video on Sunday and then doing the live stream on Wednesday, just is a good way to break up the week. And I'm not talking about the things everybody was talking about last week. I don't know why. It just seems like Wednesday's a good night. If it's not, again, feel free to let me know. Jim, if you want to, I don't know if you're still here, if you want to put a link to your video in the chat, if it'll allow you to, you're welcome to do that. Like if not, I'll, like I said, stick it in the description below this. But that, I think, is about all I had for tonight. The ocean being on fire was a big thing, but I think I don't know enough about it. It sounds like it was a natural gas line or something out to the oil platform that exploded. Again, I don't know too much about it. I just saw the images and thought it was CGI at first. I was like, oh, that's a weird movie trailer. Like, what are they setting up? And then apparently it's real. And I hope they extinguished it. I haven't heard much more about it, so excuse me. It just brings to mind, how we do need to do better for the planet. And I think for me, things like that, I don't know I think a couple of people may have been injured, but I don't know if anybody died from that. But these weird things that just happen are kind of, I think back to the massive explosion that happened in Beirut, and it was fertilizer being stored next to fireworks or something, like some boneheaded situation where, you don't necessarily think about it. And I'm sure the people involved didn't really put two and two together. I'm sure it was two different shipments or whatever. And, there's this massive explosion. And I think several people died in that. But you have things like that, and the tragic collapse of the condo, I think it is, in Florida. It really, to me, emphasizes why we need to do a better job societally of taking care of each other and focusing on stuff that benefits everybody. There's so much in life that is just completely out of the blue, where things, tragic things can happen from nature, from disease, from car accidents, unfortunately, still, that, when you look at all of the man-made problems in the world that seem really stupid, why we fight over certain things, why we're so hesitant to care for people less fortunate than ourselves and things like that, when the world is kind of out to kill us, and we've only got so much time on this earth, and with all of the natural challenges we all face, I'd like to see more cooperation and less selfishness in the world. And I don't really know what where I'm going with this, but when I saw that fire in the ocean, and a couple other refineries, I think, caught fire or exploded this weekend, and it seems like we could find ways to put some of that stuff behind us by using better technology and more sustainable methods, and just on the human tragedy side of it, just take better care of each other and the world, and that's my kumbaya segment. Maybe I need a graphic for that or something. I don't know, but and part of it may have been coming off that road trip where there's just so much natural beauty, and there's beauty in the mountains, and there's beauty of the wildlife. There's the beauty of the high plains, which are pretty barren and seemingly desolate, and then you come down into these little ravines that have streams that are almost dry, but there's a little bit of water and there's a little bit of life there. We just have a fantastic planet, and I would like to still have a fantastic planet going forward, for my daughter and my great nieces and nephews down the line, and everybody. But that's what happens when Brian rambles. But I am out of topics for the night, as you can plainly tell. There hasn't been a ton of Tesla news. Elon's again said, the full self-driving beta will get a new visualization and will, be rolling out soonish. But there's no guarantees on that. And, I think as much as we're all hungry for it, we also want it to be safe when they roll it out, so there aren't a bunch of FUD stories about how, this is a dangerous piece of technology, and you get politicians all whipped up and trying to ban something before they know anything about it. So, because we know people can't change their minds. So once somebody says, I'm against a thing, you can't go ahead and like it. Exactly. It'll be ready in 2 weeks. We're going to Mars in 2 weeks, he said. Definitely, he was joking on that one. But yeah, that's about all I have. There isn't too much news out there, and I just kind of wanted to touch on some additional pieces about my trip. And so this Sunday, I'll have probably the segment from when we, like I said, woke up that next morning in Dickinson to maybe our first day in Glacier when we were doing the kayaking, and we rented a kayak and a canoe because we couldn't all fit in one vessel. So so I might do through that day in Glacier, and then part 3 might start with the second day in Glacier, which is when we had our second flat tire. And that day got all crazy messed up. But we met some interesting people. Some cool stuff happened. We saw some cool stuff. And, you know, it's all part of the adventure. So, this week will be the Dickinson Dinosaur Museum, driving over to Bozeman, picking my wife up, and the drive up to Glacier, and then probably day 1 of Glacier. But I'll see how the length turns out and how much I can get done by Sunday morning, when it will, yeah, it'll come out on time. Sure it will. All right. With that, I'll thank you. Have a great day, great night, great week, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.